After being bitten by a great white shark, a young surfer is stranded on a rock close to shore and must outwit the predator that stalks nearby. Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a 2016 survival horror titled The Shallows. On a beach in Mexico, a boy is running around playing with a football when he discovers a helmet with a GoPro camera on it. He opens it and turns it on. There is a video of two guys surfing. Suddenly, one of them starts running for help as he is about to get on a rock. He is pulled down and gets eaten by a big shark. Nancy Adams, a medical student, travels to a secluded beach in Mexico, the same beach her mother visited while she was pregnant with her. Carlos, a local from the village, gives Nancy a ride. In the car, she tells Carlos about her mother and how she came to this beach while she was pregnant with her. Nancy asks Carlos about the name of the beach, but Carlos laughs it off. They arrive at the beach. Nancy gets out of the car, takes a deep breath, and tries to digest the beauty of this astonishing beach. Carlos takes her surfboard out of the car and tells her that it is going to be dark in a few hours. Nancy goes down and starts getting ready for her first surf. She packs her clothes in a bag and notices two locals already surfing and enjoying themselves. Finally, Nancy straps her surfboard to her ankle and runs toward the water. The waves here are a little bigger than she expected. She ducks 3 big waves and gets close to the locals. She asks them the name of the beach as well, but they also laugh it off and tell her if they told her they'd have to kill her. They tell her that there are some rocks here, and when the tides get low, it becomes an island. They also tell her about the fire corals and how it stings like jellyfish. All 3 of them start surfing, and we start seeing Nancy's surfing skills. After catching a few good waves, she takes a little break and returns to the beach. She gets a video call from her little sister Chloe. She cannot believe that Nancy found Mom's beach. Nancy talks to her about the surfing experience here and how it's different from others. As they are about to hang up, her dad talks to her and asks her how she's been. He tells her to not drop out of medical school. It looks like Nancy has lost faith in everything after her mother's death. Her father wants her to come back and get back to her life, but Nancy's not ready yet. Nancy gets emotional and hangs up the phone. She grabs her board and goes back in. It is getting late. The 2 locals tell Nancy to get back as they are leaving, but she wants to catch one more wave before calling it a day. With the 2 locals away on the shore, Nancy starts to feel that something is in the water. She puts her feet up onto the board. Suddenly, several dolphins emerge from the water and begin swimming away. Nancy starts paddling slowly towards them. She notices a carcass of a big humpback whale not very far from her. As she rides the last wave back to the beach, a large great white shark knocks her off her surfboard. The rope that is tied to her ankle snaps as she gets knocked to the bottom, striking the rocks below pretty hard. She swims back up and notices her board nearby. As she is about to get on it, the shark rams its teeth into her thigh and drags her down. She struggles but manages to get back up and swim towards the whale. She climbs onto it and uses the rope from her ankle to tie her thigh to stop the bleeding. As she is moaning in pain, she notices that the locals are leaving in their car. She tries to get their attention by screaming at the top of her lungs. However, they are unable to hear her and just drive away. The shark rams the whale from underneath, forcing Nancy to dive in the water and swim towards an isolated rock. She falls asleep for a few moments before being jolted awake by the pain in her leg. She notices that she is bleeding and that she has to seal the massive wound, so she stitches herself up with her necklace and earring and covers her wound with her bodysuit. She realizes she is not alone. She is accompanied by a wounded gull. She names him Steven. He was also wounded by the shark. Nancy lays down on the rock in hopes of some miracle. It begins to get dark and she starts feeling very cold. She removes her bodysuit from her wound and wears it to stay warm. Since she is a medical student, she knows basic first aid. She loosens the cord tied around her thigh to allow blood flow in her leg for 2 minutes before tying it back up. She then cuts the arm off of her bodysuit to place on her leg as a compression bandage. Just a few hours until the sunrise, she notices her surfboard a few yards away. She contemplates the idea of swimming out to it. She gets into the water and starts swimming toward it very slowly, with her leg bleeding into the water. As she gets closer, she notices the shark's fin, right where her surfboard is. She panics and jolts back toward the rock. She is in excruciating pain. As she catches her breath, she notices a drunk guy lying on the beach. With a hint of hope, she stands upon the rock and starts calling him after a period of yelling. The man gets to his feet. As he looks toward her, the drunk guy thinks that she is waving at her. He starts waving back. She then remembers that she can tell him to call someone from her phone. She points toward her belongings, hoping that he will call for help. The guy starts moving towards her bag. Nancy gets very happy, thinking it's over. As he gets close to her bag, he takes her phone out with clearly no intention of calling for help. He puts her phone in his pocket and steals her backpack. She cannot believe what she is seeing. As the man is going away, he notices Nancy's surfboard, which is floating close to the shore. The greedy drunk puts down the bag and starts swimming toward the board. Nancy tries to warn him about the shark, but he keeps on swimming. He gets on the board, struggling not to fall. Suddenly, in a blink of an eye, he disappears. The shark tears him up into two pieces. He crawls a few inches on the beach before dying. In the morning, the two locals return to the beach. Nancy sees them, but she is too drained to warn them. She gathers her strength and begins to yell. She tells them about the shark, but they are unable to hear. She screams over and over with no luck. After a brief period of paddling, the shark emerges from the depths and slams his jaws around one of the men while his friend watches in horror. He rushes toward Nancy in the hopes of surviving and suddenly disappears from sight. As Nancy tries to figure out what just happened, the shark spits out the guy's surfboard. A few seconds later, he emerges above water. As Nancy tries to pull him up, the shark pulls him back down. Nancy is stunned. She can't believe what is happening. The water turns red with his blood. Nancy's last hope is dwindling. The shark is not going anywhere because Nancy is right in the middle of its feeding zone. She picks up Steven the seagull and realizes that his wing is dislocated. She jerks it back in place and gets a thank you bite from Steven. She notices the GoPro camera that one of the local surfers was wearing, floating on the surface, and decides to go after it. She keeps track of the shark's trip from the whale to the rock. It takes 32 seconds. She starts the timer and gets in the water. She gets to a rock close by, which is almost submerged. She gets on it and tries to retrieve the helmet, but fails. As she reaches a little farther, she falls into the water with just 6 seconds to spare, but quickly gets back on the rock. As the shark circles around her, she starts the timer again and jumps in the water. With a little struggle, she finally gets a hold of the camera. Within seconds, the shark leaps out of the water, narrowly missing her, but she panics and falls in the water. Before coming up above water, she gets a good look at the vicious creature. She also notices the shark getting stung by the fire coral along the rocks. She looks at the footage from the camera. As she is going through it, she notices that the shark has a large hook stuck in its mouth after a possible encounter with fishermen. There is only 10 minutes left until high tide. The rock she is sitting on will be completely submerged. The last hope she has now is the buoy that's about 30 yards away. Nancy uses the GoPro to leave messages for her sister and father, as well as information about the shark attack and her location. She tells her sister and father that she loves them and will fight just like her mother fought her cancer. With the final goodbye, she throws it in the water. She puts Steven the seagull onto a piece of surfboard and sends him off towards the shore. The rock she is sitting on is almost completely submerged, and the shark is still circling her. When she is about to get in the water, a group of jellyfish floats up between her and the buoy. She realizes that this is her head start. She gets in the water and swims between the jellyfish. The jellyfish stings her as she tries to maneuver between them. The shark comes in charging, narrowly missing her. She rushes to the buoy as the shark swims toward her from the other side. She makes it to the buoy. As she climbs up the ladder, it breaks, causing her to fall into the water and right on top of the shark. She stabs the shark with the metal bar that's in her hand. As she sits on the buoy, she sees a cargo ship far away. She notices a metal box attached to the buoy. She tries to open it, but it's jammed. She tries to hurry before the ship disappears from sight. Finally, she succeeds in opening it. Much to her surprise, there is a flare gun inside, but the cartridges fall in the water as the case pops open. She manages to retrieve one, loads it quickly and pulls the trigger, but the cartridge is wet, and the flare simply falls into the water. There are still 3 left in the water. She ties her bodysuit around her waist and leans out with the buoy and retrieves all 3 from the water. She loads and shoots again toward the sky. This time the shot is good, but the cargo ship is out of sight. She waits for it but does not see it anymore and just sits there in despair. The same kid we saw in the intro, who was playing along the beach with a football, sees Nancy's message in the video and quickly runs to get help. Nancy begins dozing off while her leg bleeds in the water. When the shark detects the blood, he becomes even more violent and begins ramming the buoy from below, breaking one of the chains that holds the buoy in place. Nancy springs up and fires the flare gun right at the shark's face. It hits the shark, but the shark keeps ramming the buoy from all sides. Nancy goes up the ladder and looks for it from above with one shot left in the gun. She notices oil from the whale's carcass and the shark coming right through it. She shoots the last shot at the oil. It lights up the water but has no effect on the shark other than enraging it even more. The shark begins ferociously attacking the buoy, breaking another one of the 3 chains below and knocking the buoy on its side. Nancy rushes to get herself in between the bars, right before the shark comes up for another violent attack. The bars shield her while the shark slams its teeth into the buoy. As she moves back to the other side, she notices that there are metal bars sticking out from the base of the buoy down below. She removes the rope tied around her leg and ties it to the last remaining chain on the buoy. As the shark comes up for another attack, the chain breaks and falls below the ocean, pulling Nancy down at the same time. The shark instantly rushes down after Nancy. As she nears the bottom, she releases her grip on the rope and pulls out of the dive, and the shark violently impales itself on the metal bars sticking out from the buoy's base. Later, the boy that found the camera runs to his father, who happens to be Carlos, the same person who dropped off Nancy at the beach. Carlos finds Nancy floating close to shore. He rescues and revives her. Nancy briefly sees a hallucination of her mother. As she looks around the beach, she sees that Steven the seagull has also made it to shore. 1 year later, a healed Nancy, now a doctor, and her sister Chloe go surfing in Galveston, Texas. Their father tells Nancy that her mother would have been proud. As they both run toward the water, Chloe asks Nancy, "You think I'll ever be as good as you?" Nancy replies, "No." Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos.